morning, everybody. It's Mike Novak. Rachel Novak's on as well. Agent Growth Hub today. We meet every week. We talk about ways to grow your business, way to scale, and cover stuff in business, personal, fitness, everything else. Today, we're talking about developing, updating, implementing SOPs, and this is going to be a fun one to talk about. I definitely want to make sure that this is interactive, and if you're on here live, awesome. Please engage with us, be part of the conversation. If you're watching the replay, that's totally cool. It'll be posted on our YouTube channel on the Agent Growth Hub, and then also in the Facebook group as well. Like I was saying before I hit the record button, some of those are getting thousands of views, which is awesome. It's great that people are finding tremendous value in watching the replays if they can't make it live. We get it. People are busy. You're out there selling houses, making phone calls, all sorts of stuff. Can't always get on here live, and make sure you can go back and watch the replay and still get lots of valuable information. Rachel, myself, Jim Black, and Ed Stroud run the Agent Growth Hub. Jim and Ed are out of different markets. Jim's out of Boston, Mass. Ed's out of Kansas City and a few other markets. And then we're out of just north of Seattle, Washington. So excited to see our real family in, what is it, Rach, 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Yes. If you're going to Rise, we will be there. We will see you guys there. Definitely say hi if you bump into us. Looking forward to seeing everyone. How many people are going to be at it, right, Rach? Like a couple thousand?
So they actually capped the overall general admission tickets to 1,500. I was just in the speakers Zoom right before this, and Libby's like, it's gonna be very cozy. Like they are maxing out the venue for how many tickets they sold. So only 1,500, but I think it's gonna be a very cozy 1,500. So
how many was it last year?
Just over, I think it was like 1,200.
Yeah, it was pretty big last year too. Awesome to see though. Cool. All right, let's jump into it. I want to talk about the problem before we talk about the solution. So the problem that I want to frame this conversation around is as an agent or as an agent that is growing a team in a business, you likely have a ton of things to do. You personally know and understand what your expectations are for them, but then you enter this part of your business growth where you start hiring people, start adding leverage around yourself, and you don't have an effective way of passing on those expectations to the person that you have hired. This is a really big problem, guys. An essential component to leadership is that you shape the target for which you want your people to hit, right? Like it's very, very important. If you don't shape that target, they have no idea what they're shooting at. So SOPs really do define what your expectation is and what you're looking for your people to accomplish. You're giving them a proven process that's going to bring predictability and consistency to it. So it's a huge value for your team and for the people that are around you. It brings just so much consistency to a business and organization. You know, oftentimes when I see a business, whether it's our business or someone else's business we're talking to, and they have, you know, breakdowns, miscommunications, almost every single time there's some kind of SOP like process breakdown that's not there. There's no structure for what's being expected. And so that's what we really want to talk about today. These SOPs could be used for 1099 contractors. Like let's say you contract a videographer, you could have an SOP for that. It could be also used for W-2 employees. Like if you've got admin staff, you would definitely want to have SOPs for those people as well. So the solution to that problem is obviously to create SOPs, which means you're going to write down step-by-step procedures for each person's role that you hire. And so SOP, for those that don't know, stands for what? Standard operating procedures. The freaking standard, people. We're telling people what we're expecting, right? Man, so many times I hear from people, they're like, shit, you know what? I'm not going to ask somebody to go do something because it just takes 10 times as long to go do it. I just go do it myself. I've heard that from so many people. These are people that like never will grow their business because they just don't have a mindset of passing along what they're doing in an effective way to other people so that they can buy back their time and have freedom, leverage, and spend their time doing things that make them a lot more money. If that's you, I get it. But the solve to that is to really have very clear expectations through having SOPs, okay? These SOPs ultimately come together to create a playbook of how your company is ran. So before I share with you some of the SOPs that we have in our life, I'd love to hear from each of you guys, or at least a few of you that are live with us on where you have SOPs, whether if it's personal, whether if it's business. And if you don't, are there parts of your life that are maybe like super disorganized or where you've got expectations, those expectations are not being consistently met by other people? I'll start with you, Anna.
Thanks, Mike, putting me right on the spot. This was like my first real job going into it. So SOPs were really, really new to me. When I started, I didn't even know what an SOP was, but I quickly learned to love them and to embrace them because like when you don't know what to do, you don't have to go ask a bunch of people or take up people's time. You strictly go to the SOP and it has a step-by-step breakdown of what you need to do. So I also learned to write SOPs, and that's helped me buy back a lot of my time personally when we got an executive assistant for Mike.
Yeah, and you've like one of the expectations I have for people is like, hey, when you come into my world, you're going to have a baseline SOP. Like that's my job, is that we have a baseline of what we're expecting, but that is just the start of the journey together, right? And as you bring those right people in, like Anna's an amazing, amazing leader within our organization. She has taken what I started and she enhances and improves it every single week, right? It's a living, breathing document that is continually worked on. If you hire the right people, they'll do exactly what Anna's done, take ownership for those SOPs. So Anna's benefited from them and also now creates them, which is freaking awesome. Chuck, what about you? I know you love your SOPs too.
Okay, unmute myself. Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, I don't know if Anna said this. She is Mike's um, primary partner, quotation marks, primary partner. And she's how old are you, Anna?
I'm 21.
Yeah, she's a complete baller. So anybody who hangs out as closely as they do together with her and Mike is uh, that it's a crazy thing. Yeah, I actually somewhat hate SOPs. And so I'll put it into different, not just work stuff. So Mike has been we've been lifting together for a long time, 7-ish years. Whether it's on the same machine or like in proximity. And he had been telling me, hey, you need to track your food and you need to weigh it all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That seems like the dumbest thing in the world. Like it's too much work. Um, hate it. And started doing it about a year and a month or so ago. And my body recomp is the best it's ever been. So like that's just an SOP for working out, eating. Another connection is I'm involved in our church, and we're in different levels of leadership, and we put a leader um, into leadership, and I'm like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Like I just heard about this, and this person, I'm not saying they're a bad person, but that person just arrived into our collective leadership, and we didn't have a discussion about it. There was no process, there was nothing. They just ended up here. Well, some of the people knew the process, but the bulk of the leadership didn't know the process and wasn't privy to walk that through. That was really kind of disconcerting because like I'm in Mike's world. Everything has a process. And I'm like, we need to like, I'm not saying boot this person off. We need to have a process that we can actually take these steps through, because then when we arrive at a decision, everybody's on the same page. Because right now, not everybody's on the same page. So I think that totally helps in business, but it also helps in like all kinds of other areas.
Yeah. So you were frustrated that there was really no expectation on how somebody would get elevated into a super important leadership role within your church.
Correct. Yeah. And some people knew what it was, but most of us didn't know. And like that's not the world that I live in Monday through Saturday. I live in Mike's world where everything has process, including laundry.
I love it. And I'm proud of you for tracking your food too, because you are now the most jacked grandpa I know. So well done on that, buddy.
Well, so I mean, and again, I don't want to hijack the meeting, but like discipline equals freedom. And so, like, as much as I hate it, like I also love it because, like, I don't really have to think. I turned on my camera because I just finished eating, but I don't really have to think about what I'm eating because it's on the meal plan. So like that is freedom. And my wife thinks like I used to think, but she does, thankfully doesn't look like me, but she's not nearly as disciplined as I am.
I'm glad that Teresa doesn't look like you, just so you know. So
Yes.
got it. Dave, what's up, Dave? Why don't you chime in, man? Love to hear
Hey,
your
thank you
perspective
so
on that.
much, Mike.
Are you gonna
I'm
be at Rise, by
gonna.
the way? Are you
Am I
coming-
going to be where?
Are you gonna be at Rise in a couple weeks?
I don't. Am I invited?
Oh, I don't know if you're going or not. I thought you might be going.
I don't. I don't think I was invited. You know, I can ask Marty about that.
Okay.
Marty Reinhardt. So I'm going to go on what Chuck said, that the structure fosters creativity, and when there are SOPs in place for myself, whether it's in my personal or in my real estate morning, 100%, it not only keeps me on track, but it allows me to have that creative time later and not worry like I didn't get my stuff done as efficiently as possible. And I'm one that likes to kind of veer off path at times. And the SOPs is what keeps me on the road, so I don't blow out my energy doing things in an inconsistent or an inefficient way. So I'm all about them.
So you use it as like a personal focus tool, basically.
Yes, I use it as a personal focus tool, whether it's what I do, my evening practice before I go to bed, whether my morning practice, or even some of the things that you've taught me in the morning, 90 minutes outbound, or certain amount of time on social media, like, and having procedures, going through the listing strategy, going through a buyer strategy, like having those SOPs really just brings so much clarity and allows the creativity to come out. And the creativity is what's going to keep us differentiated from other agents, I think, moving in the future. But without the SOPs, we won't have a base for that creativity to shine from.
Yeah, I love that, Dave. That's freaking fantastic. Very cool.
Thank you.
Jim, how about you, buddy?
So I like SOPs. I just don't want to document them. I just want someone to, Kim's shaking her head. I want someone to follow behind me and write them down, because I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be completely honest. However, I will expect all of you to follow that standard operating once you see me do it once. So I guess as I talk out loud, I probably should have somebody follow me around and document. Kim's probably documented some of it.
Gotcha. Okay. So you love people using SOPs, you just hate writing their SOPs.
Correct.
And you have very high expectations.
Correct. They better do it exactly the way I did it. Yes.
Okay, got it. Just want to make sure I understood everything.
Is that accurate, Tim?
Pretty accurate. And to be fair, sometimes the way he does it is actually not quite the way it actually needs to be done on top of that. So, there's the triple standard that sometimes Jim needs the SOP.
Got it. Okay. So holding Jim accountable to his own SOPs. That's
Well, to be fair, like, I think that is actually really common, especially with leaders. Because a lot of times we're just kind of creative, visionary, like run out and do this stuff. Again, Mike's a unicorn. Like, he wants to go do this stuff, but he also wants everything written down. And most leaders are not like that. They're just going to go out and do stuff. And like, I know in my previous businesses, like, I was just like what Jim said. Like, I just expect everybody to be working hard and doing all the things that I'm doing. Like, why do I need to write it down? You come to work, right? And like, most of the time they had no idea what I just did. And so, but I think it's really, Jim's kind of throwing himself under the bus, but I think it's really common.
it's super common. I was
that
laughing.
kind of thing.
I was laughing with him and at him, kind of both at the same time. But, it's super common, and I'm glad you guys are bringing that up, because for those of us that kind of understand like leadership, there's oftentimes, like, to quote the traction system, there's a visionary and there's an integrator in a business. A visionary is exactly what Jim is. Like, they've got this great vision of what could be. Jordan Terrell is like a good buddy of all of ours. Jordan is a fantastic visionary. Like, Jordan can cast the biggest, greatest, most fantastic vision you've ever seen in your life. Then the implementer is the person that can go actually get this shit done, right? And very often leaders are not both of those things. In fact, they're almost never both of those things. The only one that I know personally is actually Sharon. Like Sharon is both a visionary and an integrator. So it's very common that you have that, and you have to do what Jim's done, and that's surround yourself with an integrator. If you're a visionary, you don't have that integration skill set, if that makes sense. Like, you know, you're great at casting awesome vision, but you have no idea how to actually get it done or execute it. Jordan's the same way. Like, he's not a great integrator, but he's got people around him that are fantastic integrators that can go execute and bring to life that vision that he's created, you know. Jim, have you read that book, Traction? I'm pretty sure you have. I feel like
I've read about half of it. It's sitting on my bedside table, partially read.
you got through the visionary part and you stopped at the integrator.
So it's one of those things where you look at it, you're like, we really should be following all of this stuff.
What stuff?
Like actually going and having standard operating procedures for everything that we do and having those systems in place. And I think we do better than most, but we definitely don't have it in place the way you do, down to, like, you know, the weighing in the meal.
Yeah. All right, Jim, maybe the best like executor of SOPs I've actually met in my life. Like, talk about SOPs for you.
They make my heart happy, if I'm honest. So
Well, hold on. Why? Like, you have a unique personality type. You're a high C, high I. Why do you like SOPs? Like, why does that like bring you joy to have something like that?
I live and breathe discernment. And so if something can be done, I like poking holes in things, right? My husband is like a wonder and a visionary type of person. He'll tell me all his plan, like this great idea. And then my knee-jerk reaction is be like, well, wait a minute, what about this, this, and this? And he's like, why are you crushing my soul? But it's how I roll. I like to make sure that if something's going to happen, it actually can happen, and plug those holes up, bridge the gap, make the system seamless and as smooth and frictionless as possible. That just in my mind feels really good to know that it's an algorithm. You literally have an input, and if you've designed it properly, you get the output you want. And that feels really good to me. So we on our team clearly run on a lot of SOPs. Rachel and I wrote a lot of SOPs that now are such a beautiful thing for me to watch, because I don't touch them anymore, but I watch others in our organization now pick them up and refine them even more. And it's cool because I don't have to spend energy on it anymore. It's kind of like I feel like I walk the line a little bit of being an implementer, but also not wanting to implement it forever. Like, I don't want to have my hands in the weeds forever. I just want to know that algorithm is seamless and smooth. It can be just plug and chug it. And then everybody's on the same page. You can get that same output, and you're all on the same railroad tracks together in the same direction.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, how about you know, when I look at like you and Rachel, you guys were partners together for 3 years. I think that's one of the reasons you guys were so successful together, because Rachel was a great visionary to it, and you were a great implementer of that vision, and that's where a lot of, you know, just substance came together. So that was a great partnership. And you guys are kind of working in a similar capacity now, with her as a sales manager and you as a sales trainer, you know?
Yes, definitely. We
Cool.
have a good history of that whole algorithm building. I like it.
Dynamic. Yep. Jen typically takes my dreams and discerns them into pieces, and I have to still love her through that.
I know. I've had a lot of practice not offending my husband so that I can tell people when they're wrong.
Mhm.
Well, you do a really
Exactly.
good job of, like, you ask for an annoyingly high amount of detail. You're like, well,
Yes.
when you're saying this, do you really mean this, 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 and this? I'm like, oh, no. So
You
it's
have to get in the
helpful with-
weeds. Yeah,
Yep.
in the beginning, you
Mhm.
really, and this is something that I think when you have like a Jim who's, you know, like, just write down what I just did. And then you have Kim behind him, like, well, wait a minute, what exactly did you just do? And similar with what Chuck was describing, you have to be able to see with clarity what they are doing. Like, if the visionary is not the one writing it down, the implementer coming behind them has to be able to have that communication. And that freedom to say, no, wait a minute, you need to explain exactly what just happened so I can write it down. And that's where a really good partnership comes into play. You have to be able to have that give and take and know that I'm not questioning you and your authority and how you've designed doing this. I'm questioning exactly what you did so I can write it down. Those are two different things. And you have to be able to have that balance and understanding for sure.
Yeah, really good point. Well articulated. What about you, Rachel?
I think that, the key for Jen and I, or for anybody who's like writing SOPs or coming up with it, like there's one way to do it, which is kind of Jim's way, which is just follow me around and write down what I do, right? Or write down what I do in a day. And that's kind of an initial framework for a standard operating procedure. So when Jen and I would write them, we typically say, okay, what are the main points? Like, what are the main activities that need to happen throughout this process, whether it's a listing process, a financial process, a buyer's process, a CRM process, whatever it is. What are like the main, 6, 7, 8 things that need to get done? And then you start breaking those down into more detail, right? So, for me, it's a significant energy expenditure for me to sit down and write an SOP. I'm exhausted and I need naps for 3 days afterward because it's not my genius, right? But I can do it. I can apply myself to say, here's the framework. And then I bring in detail people like Jen or Robin to come in and be like, okay, here's the specifics. Here's the actual steps. Here's the screenshots of the sheet that you're looking for. Here's the button on this page that you're looking for to finish this SOP. So I think creating the framework first, so similar to what Jim does, but being a little bit more intentional with these are the overall steps. Now the detail person can go in and fill in between to create that process or to reflect that process.
You've definitely seen the benefit of SOPs over a period of a couple decades now. So I think it's got you bought in. Like, as much as it's frustrating you to do, you see the value of doing it.
For sure.
Cool. So here's some areas that we have SOPs in. And I want to kind of collaborate through each one of these with you guys on what you could expand each of these SOPs into for like subtopics. The first one is buyer SOPs. So like this means if I'm going to represent a buyer, what are my standard operating procedures? Some of the ones that come to mind for me are, how do I set a buyer consultation? What do I do at a buyer consultation? What do I do after the consultation? What do I do after I sign the person? What do I do if I don't sign the person? What are some other ones, Anna?
What do you do after you sign the person, like the cadence of follow-up? What do you do when they want to offer? What do you want to do after they're pending? What do you want to do at the inspection? What do you want to do at the final walkthrough? And then what do you want to do when they're closed?
Yeah, how do you even do the key handoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things that, these are all like part of the buyer journey. So if you like are thinking about writing a buyer SOP, just think about like, what is the start of this buyer journey? And then what is the end of it? And then what are the milestones along the way? Because at each milestone, you're probably going to have an SOP that needs to be articulated and kind of think about it in a linear way like that. The next one, seller SOPs. Jen, you want to talk about that since you wrote the bulk of ours?
Sure. Kind of similar in many ways to the buyer SOP, but their journey is a little different. So it's going to start, of course, with how you're setting that appointment, what expectations you're going to set with the potential client, what internally you need to do to prepare, how you package your marketing that you're going to bring to discuss with them, and how do you articulate that marketing. All of that has an SOP to it. Once they have decided to work with you, what are next steps? And on the listing side of things, there's a lot that gets done before they ever go to market. It is so work heavy in the front end before you hit market. So what does that look like? How do you keep it organized, make sure it happens in a timely way, and also make sure that the client feels loved on and taken care of? So we have SOPs for communication cadences up until they're ready to hand over keys to us. We have communications for SOPs for when we start arranging vendors like photography and cleaners and things. Like, there's very distinct times when those actions get triggered based on the previous step, right? That has a lot to do with the client's input as well. So it's kind of like a web tree of choose your own adventure. And we have to write all of that down so that at any one time, a person can come in, take a look at the file and figure out exactly what the next step is. Otherwise, it's almost like, unless, you know, if Rachel last talked to this person the last 3 times and we didn't have an SOP, and then she's out on a trip or something and I come in to try and help, I have no idea what to do unless we have a specific cadence and choose your own adventure tree to know exactly what the next fork in the road is and how to move forward from that. So the pre-listing phase has, you know, vendor preparation. It has how we coach a client to get their house ready, how we handle staging if they're in the home or out of the home, how we handle if we need to order HOA resale certificates, you know, all of that kind of culminating to when they actually list their home and get on the market. Once they are on the market, then there's SOPs on our communication cadences while they are live and not yet under contract. There's a lot of emotion, expectation, handling for the client. We have SOPs for that too. And then once they are under contract, then who takes care of that file thereafter? You know, who in the organization is going to follow up with all of the parties involved in escrow, things like that, all the way up until we do a key exchange as well. How do we manage to put the keys where they need to go to transfer that to the buyer's team and what they need to know? All of it is very detailed, organized, written down. Every single step can be followed by anyone on our organization, which is phenomenal because there's a lot of cover and move, which is pretty rad.
I think like to
go ahead, Mike.
piggyback on that, you know, and I know that you touched on it, Michael, but you know, if anybody is wanting, if you're ever wanting to grow, right, like as a real estate agent, like the difference between an agent who just knows how to do business and kind of wings it, but they know what to do. It's mostly the same each time, you know, but they're doing most of it themselves. Like that's fine. But if you're looking to actually build a business where you're bringing in an administrative assistant, or you're bringing in a showing partner, you're bringing in somebody to help leverage you in some way, the only successful way to do that is to have an SOP. And if you think about it, like, okay, this SOP isn't just for me to make sure that they're doing it how I want them to do it. It is an instruction booklet that is incredibly valuable to the person coming in, because people coming in to work with you want to know those expectations, and you can give them verbally and you can reinforce them verbally, but unless you have it written down where they know that they are following exactly what you want them to do, like that's how you build confidence with people in this industry really, really quickly, and build close, you know, communication and close, being able to build people's skill sets up really quickly is giving them these blueprints for all these different processes. So it's your job, if you're wanting to build, if you're wanting to grow, make these a priority so that you can bring people in and build them up in the business to actually be good leverage for you. I think that's the big difference between wanting to build a business and just being an agent in the industry.
That's what I was saying too. Like you can have literally anybody on your team in your organization step in, whether it's their role, which is usually the case, it's their role, they're following that instruction manual, or if there's a cover and move situation. So hopefully you're so slammed with business that you have to have people all hands on deck. Well, you can't really do that unless you have that instruction manual. It's more of a shit show where you're not going to be able to get any actual help when all hands come on deck, unless you have a rule book people can just slip in, look at it, and execute, versus you being a director at that point.
Yeah, if you're like the dam all the time, right? Like everything has to go through you because you're the one who knows how to do it, and you're having to give instructions to everybody. You're limiting your own growth. Period.
Exactly.
Dave, see your hand up.
Yeah, I love what you just shared there. I think it's almost like you're I don't want to say firing yourself, but it's like you're replacing yourself in your own job by putting the procedures into place. I know people used to get offended when I would say it's like you're firing yourself or replacing your own job. Why would I want to do that? But I know that's not what this call, people don't think that way on this call, but
And that's exactly what you want to do. Yeah.
That's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because when I go out of town, I don't want to think about anything with clients unless there's something that's so important that they have to talk to me. And a lot of times when I go out of town, I put my phone in airplane mode. I did it earlier this year for 6 nights when I was camping in the California Redwoods.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Because I had SOPs in place and somebody competent enough, probably more competent than me, to be able to follow those and take care of it. I didn't have to think about it, but yeah. So to your point, I 100% agree. It means anybody else can just step in and take over.
Yeah, and I think reframing it from firing yourself to buying back your time. Like Dan Martell just wrote this book. I'm going to share with you some of it here in just a little bit. And it's called Buy Back Your Time. And it literally like discusses how to create SOPs in your business. A really, really good read and how to hire an assistant. But that's really what you're doing. Like you're not necessarily firing yourself. You're surrounding yourself with leverage so that you can focus your time on the highest income producing activities. That's the only way you can scale, right? If you just continue to do every single thing in your business, whether if it's a task, whether if it's a sales activity, whatever it is, you will hit a glass ceiling. You won't go beyond that until you start adding leverage in to take those administrative tasks off your plate. And then you just keep filtering those things more and more until you're only doing 2 or 3 things. And those 2 or 3 things you love doing and you're world class at doing them as well. That's the beautiful place you want to get to. Okay, we have assistant SOPs as well. Some of the assistant SOPs we have are things like email management. How do you manage the inbox? How do you manage schedules? How do you manage travel? Things of that nature. We have
Hey, Mike, on that,
Yep.
we interviewed, I guess it's been a few months ago, we interviewed Mike's executive assistant. And like I've actually a long time ago had to manage Mike's emails. He forwarded them to me and I'm like, this is nuts. And so I asked her, I said, so what are you going to do when Mike's on vacation? Because that's pretty frequently. And like, what are you going to do about all this stuff? And she's like, well, that's easy. It's in the SOP. Like literally everything is in the SOP. So if I have a question, I just go back to that in the SOP. And it was like, okay, there you go.
Yep, absolutely. That was a long time ago where you were helping with the emails, but those were good times. All right, we have CRM SOPs as well. So how do you use the CRM? Like what is the daily expectation and workflow and process? What is the standard for lead integrity? Like what should the stage be? What should the tags be? What should the action plans be? What should the search be? Like what are all these details for every single lead within your CRM and how should your CRM be used? We have lead conversion SOPs as well. And the lead conversion SOPs are really focused on the sales conversion language and the follow-up and the conversion of paid online and Sphere leads. We have listing coordinator SOPs. So Jim touched on our listing agent SOPs, but we have listing coordinator SOPs as well. And that dynamic, that synergy between those two is super, super important. When they both know, both the agent and the coordinator, who's doing what and who owns which tasks and responsibilities, and when they will be done and how they will be done, each of them can really just excel at their own individual role, but work together. We have listing coordinator or not listing coordinator, closing coordinator SOPs as well. So contract to close, like what happens from when we put a home under contract to when we reach the closing table. There's an SOP for that entire position as well. We also have,
You know what? One note just on these, as like they evolve over time, right? Like we have to continue to update them. Once we have a person in that position, after their 90 days and they know it, they now own that SOP and it is their responsibility. Like every single one of my administrative teammates has an hour in their schedule on Thursday or Friday every single week where they go back through their entire SOP and update anything that needs to be updated. So if anything's changed, if a login changed, if a registration page changed on something, if one tiny little thing changes, they update the SOP weekly. So just to get in that cadence. But my point with that was we get so granular in these operating procedures that we even have text and email templates for like the weekly check-ins. So there is like bullet points for our transaction coordinator to be able to say, okay, it's week 3, confirm that appraisal's in and inspections through. And this is then, here are 2 or 3 different kind of prompts that you can have when you call the client. Because for administrative teammates, especially, calling the client each week and checking in on them, they don't know what to say. They're not salespeople. It's really difficult for them to like come up with something to say. So even in the SOP, we have like, here's a great talking point. Here's bring up this, remind them of a utility change, ask them how the move is going. Like, so even getting that granular with like what conversation topics they can bring up is super helpful to teammates.
Yeah, definitely. We have nanny SOPs. Do you want to talk about those at all, Rach?
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than anything in business. You know, we have expectations for the person who watches our kids on a regular basis. So what we expect when we come home, what we expect light housekeeping to look like specifically, like what rooms need to be touched, what we expect of the food prep to be done, what we expect the kids' chores to be, how large the dog's servings are for their food. I mean, literally anything and everything. Like there's expectations of, okay, this is your shift this day. This is what we expect when we come home from it. So.
Yeah, the food prep SOPs I was going to talk about, like a couple years ago, I had some chicken that was overcooked, and I was like, you know what? The overcooked chicken's not her fault; it's my fault. I didn't know how to cook chicken, and so boom, now we have food prep SOPs. How do you cook rice? How do you cook chicken? How do you cook steak? All these different things. We also have laundry SOPs because there was like one of our personal like assistants. She shrunk a whole bunch of my shirts. I was like, well, I didn't tell her how to do the laundry, so it's my fault. And so now we have a laundry SOP as well. There's actually a little minor flow chart to go with it. So anyways, all that to say, how do we write an SOP? I want to give you guys just a framework. I'm going to share my screen just so you can see an actual example. I'm going to show you my assistant one, if I can get all this crap out of my way. Let's see here. And again, like a lot of this comes out of Buy Back Your Time, Dan Martell. Like, go buy that book if you have not. These are the 4 C's. So the first C is the camcorder method. And what this means is that you've turned on Loom, and Loom is recording what you're doing as you're doing it. Not everything happens online, so you can't use this in some instances. Like you couldn't use this for showing a house. But things like setting an appointment, like what's the process in the CRM, you could totally use the camcorder method for that. So if it's anything that has to do with a computer or a cell phone, you should have a screen recording walking the person through doing that. For those of us that are like Jim and we don't like to, write SOPs, it's really simple just to download and install Loom into your Google, Chrome browser and just turn it on when you're doing it and then send that to your assistant and have her put it into the SOP like that. It's super simple to just execute it from that perspective. The next C is course. So what is like the high level steps involved? The third is cadence. How often should this be done? And then checklist. What are the items that must be completed every time? So like, for instance, here's email management. Here's a Loom video walking you through the whole process. Here's the course, setting the expectations. Here's the cadence. Here's the login. All of the details that I would need. And then there's even a standard response. This is how you should respond to my emails. Okay, so if you just follow this framework and start knocking these out a little bit at a time, eventually you'll have an entire playbook with which to run your business. There's a lot of different ways you can do SOPs, but that's the easiest one, in my opinion, to do. The other thing that I think can be helpful is to add kind of an index at the top of the page. A lot of ours have that because some of these SOPs are like 20 pages long, and it's just an index that hyperlinks and brings you to the SOP that you're actually looking for. So we've got about 3 or 4 more minutes, so I just want to open it up for any questions, any revelations, anything you guys want to talk about related to developing, enhancing, updating SOPs. Like Rachel said, the most important thing is like just start writing one and then get your people that are in different positions in your organization to own their SOP and start enhancing and updating theirs on a weekly basis. If you do that, this will come together really quickly. It feels overwhelming at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I threw it in the channel. One of the other things I've started using for SOPs, because Loom is great if someone's going to watch the whole thing, but Loom can kind of be rough if they just want to remember one stupid button in the middle. So Tango will do the same where it watches you go all the way through it. It actually creates screenshots and instructions, and it'll build your whole SOP right through the browser. And you can edit it later, like when you give it to your listing team and you say, this is how you do it. And they say, well, that's cool, but like, remember how you told me to do it in white, but you really meant black? Like, I need you to go in and change that to black so that we do it right next time. Because I'm halfway between Jim and Jen, and I figure if white doesn't work, you'd just be smart enough to switch to black, but they don't.
That looks like a great tool. I'm just on their website right now looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Great share.
Let me see if I can share an example of one of them so you guys can see it.
Hypothetically, when Jim changes his mind, you can change it from black to white.
I'm much more likely to be the one that changes my mind. Jim is colorblind, so he just makes crap up when it comes to colors.
And his last name's Black, so it's got to be Black.
Yeah, I just say that, oh, buy the blue house. The house is not. It's gray.
That is specifically why I said from black to white.
I can do the black and white, no other colors though.
I love it. Anything else from anybody? No, we're good. We got this down. Easy.
It's the initial framework.
Yep. If you want copies of our SOPs, you can feel free to message us. We'll send you guys a copy of them, or at least a few of them, so you can kind of get an idea of the framework. SOPs, like, you know, it's easy to share them with people, but they are super unique to each person's business and how you do things. So even sharing ours won't necessarily help you that much because you need to create them customized to how you do things and your technology and your workflows and things like that. But if you follow those 4 C's, that gives you a really good step-by-step framework to start doing this, and then to start working on it each week. And eventually you're going to have this awesome, gorgeous playbook to operate your business from. Lane, yes, I can send you a couple of examples. Just shoot me a message on Facebook or something, or email them. I'll send them over your direction, my friend. Cool. We will be back next Thursday. Do you know what we're talking about next Thursday, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm going to be leading a conversation about building foundational habits for success.
All right, that sounds like a good one. Awesome. Well, it's great to see everyone. I love the level of participation today. Really fun when everyone shares, and it's just really collaborative that way. So have a good day, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Cheers, guys.